What's up guys, my name is Ace and welcome back to another gun guide. This is a series where I go into great detail with all of the stats as well as some excellent attachment combinations for every gun in Modern Warfare 2. And in today's episode, we're finally going to be moving into the battle rifle category, and we're going to start this off with the Lachmann-762. And diving right into this, we are going to be handling the battle rifles a little bit different because each of these is effectively like two guns in one, depending on whether you're in semi-auto mode or full auto mode, which you can toggle at any time. So let's start this video off with the semi-auto damage profile, since that's what this gun starts with by default. And with this, it's going to be a 2 to technically 4 shot kill, although more often than not, it's going to be a 2 to 3 shot kill, as long as you're hitting a torso shot in there, which is going to be happening more often than not. But you can see there's actually a separate upper torso and torso damage multiplier. However, at least for the first 2 damage ranges, it's going to be a 2-shot kill regardless of which of those torso multipliers you're hitting. And it's also worth noting, and one of the most important things to note about this gun is in semi-auto mode, we have a 1-shot kill potential to the head in the maximum damage range. And that's something you definitely want to be taking advantage of with this gun if you're using it in semi-auto. As for our semi-auto fire rate, this is 492 rounds per minute. And it is worth noting with the battle rifles as well, you can oversample them. If you spam the trigger too fast, the gun will kind of lock up and you won't be able to maintain that maximum fire rate. So it's much more about rhythm than speed to get this maximum rate of fire. And assuming you can reach that rate of fire potential in semi-auto, our time to kill with a 2-shot kill is just 122 milliseconds, which is faster than anything we've covered so far on this series. And even with a 3-shot kill, it's 244 milliseconds, which is still within the realm of being somewhat competitive. Then, of course, our headshot potential up close is literally 0 milliseconds. It's a 1-shot kill. So there is a ton of power potential when using this in semi-auto. Now, the moment you swap this over to full auto, it actually completely changes the damage profile of the gun, which makes absolutely no sense from a realism perspective. But for game balance, I get why they do this. I just wish it would be a little more transparent, because a lot of people still don't realize this happens. But the moment you swap this into full auto, it's now going to be generally a 3 to 4 shot kill, although it could technically take you up to 5 shots to kill if you're hitting limb shots at long ranges. But it's also worth noting that we no longer have separate upper torso and torso damage multipliers. We deal the same damage anywhere in the torso. And we no longer have a 1-shot kill potential to the head. That's a big thing you're sacrificing when you put this gun in full auto. However, mixing a headshot in with torso shots at any range will reduce the number of shots to kill, so you can get pretty consistent 2-shot kills as long as one of those bullets hits them in the head. Also, it is pretty forgiving with those torso shots up close. For the first 2 damage ranges, it doesn't matter if you're mixing limb shots in, it's still going to be a 3-shot kill. As for our rate of fire in full auto, this is 606 rounds per minute for a time to kill potential of 198 milliseconds for a 3-shot kill, which is a very competitive time to kill, but not as fast as when using this gun in semi-auto. And this does drop off to 297 milliseconds with a 4-shot kill. So technically speaking, while full auto may be a little bit easier for the average player to handle, this gun does have more power potential when used in semi-auto mode. Next, let's have a look at our range values in semi-auto versus full auto, and as we can see here, we have the exact same damage drop-off points. We're obviously just dealing different damages within each of those damage ranges. So you can see there, in semi-auto, our 2-shot kill potential is 38 meters, whereas in full auto, that's our 3-shot kill potential. Additionally, it's definitely worth noting in semi-auto mode, that 1-shot kill to the head potential, that extends out to 18 meters. Anything beyond that, you no longer get that 1-shot kill to the head. Next up, I did want to have a look at this gun's idle sway, and this doesn't matter if you're in full auto or semi-auto, you get the same sway. But as you can see there, there's definitely a decent amount of movement while aiming down sight, and especially if you're trying to stretch your ranges out a bit, this may end up throwing you off target. After that, let's have a look at our recoil, and first I want to do the recoil in semi-auto mode, keeping in mind I don't necessarily hit that perfect rate of fire cap every single time, so that does affect the recoil plot a bit. And then we'll have a look at the full auto recoil plot. And as we can see here, when we look at the comparison, it looks like full auto definitely has more recoil. However, as far as I can tell, I think the recoil values themselves are identical between semi-auto and full auto, and the only reason you're seeing more recoil in full auto is due to that higher fire rate. Overall though, I've got to say this is a lot of recoil, and it's definitely one of the big downsides of the Lachmann-762. It can be difficult to get a handle on, especially if you're trying to stretch your ranges out a little bit, and that really holds this gun back at longer ranges, even in semi-auto mode. And with that, we've now reached the point where we've covered everything that's different between semi-auto and full auto with this gun. Everything from this point on, for the base stats of the gun at least, is going to apply whether you're in full auto or semi-auto mode. It doesn't matter. And we'll start this section off with the Hipfire, and as you can see here, we actually have the worst Hipfire spread in the battle rifle category, but not by a large margin, it's just a little bit worse than the others. Next, our bullet velocity is very good in this game at 660 meters per second, so that should generally never be an issue for you. Then when it comes to our aim down sight speed, this is the best in the battle rifle category at 246 milliseconds, which is pretty solid. Whereas our sprint out time is fairly standard for a battle rifle and the same as the assault rifles out there at 210 milliseconds. And then let's get into our reload add time, which is unfortunately quite slow at 2.04 seconds. And then finally, for the base stats of this gun, let's have a look at our movement speeds. And our base movement speed is a little bit below average for battle rifles. It's not very good at 4.52 meters per second. It's a similar story with our sprint movement speed. It's a little bit below average for battle rifles and not great by any means. And our aim walking movement speed is right around average for battle rifles. But having said that, this is a very slow aim walking movement speed. You're not really going to be able to strafe effectively in a gunfight. And with that, that finally covers it for the base stats of the Lachmann-762. Now let's get into the barrel attachments and see how they first affect the ranges of this gun. And that first barrel, the Romeo 16-inch, that one helps a ton with our ranges. It gives us a 37% boost to our range, which is amazing. Whereas the 15.9-inch Lachmann Wrap, as well as the Lachmann Nova barrel, these ones both improve our ranges by 14%. The Aurora improves it by only 5%, and then the final two will both harm our range values by just 5%, which is hardly even noticeable. As for recoil, just keep in mind, I did all the comparisons in full auto just because I know I can keep things consistent in that way, and there isn't any human error present here. But as you can see there, a big standout is that 15.9-inch Lock Wrap barrel. That one helps quite a bit with our recoil, whereas for all the other barrels, they seem to have a fairly minor effect on our recoil. And then finally, for the barrel attachments, we'll have a look at our aim down sight speeds. And as we can see here, that Romeo barrel that gives us the amazing range boost, unfortunately, it also pretty much destroys our aim down sight speed. And it's a similar story with the Lachmann Wrap barrel. Whereas for all the other ones, they have a much more reasonable impact on our aim down sight speed. Some of them improve it very slightly, and others harm it a little bit. And then finally, we have a bunch of magazine attachments with this gun, and I just wanted to have a look at their aim down sight speeds here. With the 15 round mag, we see a slight but somewhat noticeable improvement at 235 milliseconds, whereas the 10 round mag gives us a slightly better improvement to our aim down sight speed. The 50 round drum adds a lot of time to our aim down sight speed at 325 milliseconds. And finally, the 30 round mag gives us a fairly reasonable aim down sight speed at 260 milliseconds. And with that, it's finally time to get into some excellent attachment combinations I've got for you guys. And the first one I wanted to share is just my good all-around semi-auto build. I wouldn't recommend using this one in full auto at all. And I definitely recommend aiming for the head whenever possible with this, especially in those close quarter situations. But with this, we got the Tempest GH50. This one helps with the vertical recoil, which is what this gun needs the most help with. We've also got that OLEV laser, the Slimline Pro optic, the LMK 64 grip, and the 15 round magazine. And with all of these combined, the aim down sight speed is 260 milliseconds, which is a very reasonable aim down sight time for a battle rifle. And that allows you to be fairly aggressive with this setup. Our sprint out speed is very noticeably improved from the base at 134 milliseconds. That's much more comparable to an SMG than a battle rifle. And then when we have a look at our recoil here, it definitely still has a good amount of recoil. And I probably wouldn't be challenging people at really long ranges with this. You typically want to keep yourself at close to mid-range, but it's at least a bit more manageable than the base recoil of this gun. And this is about as good as I was able to get with this particular gun while trying to find balance between aim down sight speed and recoil control. With this, I'd recommend playing fairly aggressively, trying to get yourself within that 18-meter range for that one-shot headshot potential. However, in a pinch, if you can't hit that one-shot kill to the head, a two-shot kill to the body is still going to be dropping them very, very quickly. So that's the semi-auto build, and that's how I prefer running this gun. However, I did want to share a full auto build as well, and with this one, you kind of have to treat it like an LMG with a smaller magazine capacity at 30 rounds, because we're using the 30 round mag on there. We once again had the Tempest GH50 muzzle. We're also combining that with the Romeo 16-inch barrel, which gives us the amazing range boost, as well as it helps with our recoil a little bit. We once again have the OLEV laser and the LMK 64 grip. And with this, our aim down sight speed is extremely slow at 410 milliseconds. And while that is unfortunate, it does give us a much more accurate gun overall. You can see with the side-by-side comparison, you can fit a 30 round recoil plot in the previous 20 round recoil plot, which is a great improvement. And there's also basically no horizontal deviation. It's just a straight line upward and slightly to the right. So it's much easier to control, but I also, once again, wouldn't recommend using this at extremely long ranges, since there is still a fair amount of recoil with this. But if you do treat this like an LMG, you're making sure you're pre-aiming lanes, for instance, you will be dropping people very, very quickly at 198 milliseconds. That's going to be outgunning many of the guns in the game. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's gun guide on the Lachmann-762. As for my thoughts on this gun, I think it's fairly niche. It's not a very versatile gun at all, and if you understand that it's not a gun that's designed to be challenging people at longer ranges, you keep yourself up close and personal, and you go for that one-shot kill to the head in semi-auto mode, you can definitely find a ton of success with this gun. Having said that though, beyond those fairly specific scenarios, it's just going to be outclassed by so many other guns out there, and I do find it really difficult to balance aim down sight speed with recoil control on this. I do feel like it's got a bit too much recoil, but those are just my thoughts, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about this gun in those comments down below. And also, if you guys have missed any of the previous episodes of Gun Guides, I will of course leave a link in the description down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.